Hi there. If you're joining us, we're just going to let people join in for a second and we'll get going. Fantastic. People are joining. Go. Okay, great. I'm gonna get going. We'll let people continue to join in, but thanks to everyone who's here already. I'm Stacy Delo. I'm the CEO of Après, and we're really excited to be hosting our first webinar around this topic, the big one around reentering the workforce, and in this case, on your own terms, which I love, and we'll talk about in a second. The journey back to work, as you know, is really what you make of it. And of course, there are always bumps along the way, but the key is really to stay upbeat and confident about the process. And I was doing some research for the book that I'm working on and came across this article. It's actually an obituary about Brenda Barnes, who was the CEO of the Sara Lee Corporation for many years. And she's really famous for, in 1997, after 20 plus years at PepsiCo, taking a break to be with her kids. She was on this kind of upward trajectory toward the CEO role there. And she decided that she wanted to be with her kids, who were, I think, 7, 8, and 10 at the time. And she took a 6.5-year break. And it was a really intentional break. And I loved what she said in this piece, that she chose to spend more time parenting, but also stayed plugged into the corporate world during that time and served on a bunch of boards. And then when she returned, she actually returned as the president of Sara Lee Corporation and then eventually became the CEO. But she referred to that time period when she was taking the break as really her graduate degree. And so I think that's such a nice way to think about a career break and to really stay positive about it. There are so many skills and things that you're learning about that are really important to remember and hold on to as you go through this process. So really quickly, I'll tell you a little bit about how we're going to go through the hour. The tools for anyone who's joining us for the first time in Zoom are pretty easy to use. We're going to share using the chat component. So you click chat, the little icon at the bottom or the top of your screen, depending on where it lives. And you can type questions. You can type things that you want to share. Laura will ask us to share along the way, and you can use that icon. You can use the hand raise icon to let us know that you want to talk out loud. And we are going to save the Q&A really till the end. So if you have any great questions, there's also a Q&A button that you can use, and you can type those questions in, and then we'll come to you at the end. So I'm so happy to introduce Laura Riordan today. I'm still working on that, Laura. We've known each other for a long time, and I just realized that I need to say her name in a different way. But I wanted to introduce her really quickly. This presentation that she's going to walk through is extremely thoughtful. There are lots of presentations that you can go through about the nuts and bolts of returning to work, but this is really a great thought process to think through what you really want out of this journey. And it lends very well to her expertise as a psychologist and holistic life coach, who's really focused on helping her clients find balance and meaningful success. She's been at this for over 20 years. And with that, Laura, I'm gonna send it over to you. So thanks everyone, and I'll be around to help us do some sharing.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. And I'm excited to share this material with you. I know where you are. I also took a break of my own career path, and returning to work was just very, well, for me, it was a process, but it was also really a beautiful way to bring myself and my skills back out into the world. And I definitely feel like that time period was like an additional graduate degree for me, learning with my daughter and learning a lot more about myself. And so with that, I wanted to start with the first piece here about what we're going to get out of this mini workshop with you guys today. And that would be the first point, to really recognize the purpose of your return to work. What kind of drives you back into the workplace? It's very important to understand this for yourself before you launch yourself back into any kind of a job search, to really center on what's meaningful for you and how's that going to work for your family. So that's what we're going to go through today. So the first part of that, what drives you back to work, and is understanding kind of like what are the underlying pieces that make up who you are. So I use an inside out approach when I'm working with almost anyone, but particularly with women returning back to work. Women biologically are set to think of others before themselves. We're wired to serve others' needs before our own. So this process of really coming back to yourself and understanding what you really need and kind of what makes you tick is going to be essential in setting up the next step for you that really helps you to thrive. And then the last piece we're going to do together today is to define the real terms that will structure your return and leave you really ready to find that resonant thing for you, really ready to find something that's going to help you to better yourself and to thrive out there in the workplace. So when I started thinking about this for women and working with women returning to work, I understood that there's different places where women are jumping back into a career or into any sort of role. Some of it is women work part-time, some that women work on a volunteer basis, and then others go full board back into their career. And so this next kind of idea about what drives you back to work, I found this lovely pyramid that is basically the professional growth pyramid that comes from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like 101, we're back there. But basically you have these building blocks that structure your return to work, and also not only your return to work, but your whole career development. We all kind of start on the bottom where, actually, I shouldn't say we all. Some of us are more gifted than others in this bottom level, but there is a need at the bottom, just like there's a real essential need for food, clothing, and shelter at the bottom of Maslow's pyramid. There's a need here for money. And this is when you have a job. You're trading your hours for dollars. It's a really clear transaction. And you're building up into the next level, where you're out there and you're looking more at a career level. You're looking now for recognition and belonging. This is something that is very much missing in our role as mothers. Typically, our kids aren't telling us after their bedtime story, "Wow, Mom, you did an awesome job reading that to me tonight." That recognition isn't coming as generously as we might get in our career or in an organization or in a more collegial setting. So that's something that we're probably all looking for and striving for, is that recognition, and then belonging to something. Always that challenging question, what do you do when you meet someone? This is that piece that really helps us to belong to something bigger than us. So that's what career success is giving us in that next block. And then finally, at the top of the pyramid is really transformation. And this is where you have very purposeful work. You're in a flow state most of the time, and you're finding meaning and inspiration from your work. All of us are working towards this point, and as you can see at the top of the pyramid, it's quite small, so very few of us actually are working at this place. But I wanted you to just recognize kind of where are you entering this pyramid? Are you really supplying more financial income to your family? Are you looking for that recognition and a place to belong? Or are you really at the top where or more towards the top where you're looking for a more meaningful or inspiring contribution? So just take a moment and think about that for yourself and identify that. And the next part of the inside out approach is looking at who you are and what makes you tick. I've been teaching a workshop for the last 3 years called What's Next at a women's co-working space here in San Francisco. And we really start with this piece of what makes you tick so that you're not going out there trying to fit your square peg into a round hole. Really understanding who you are is essential in this process. So we start with these 5 areas, most importantly being personality, values, and strengths. So I'll start there. Your personality really comes down to your preferences in the world. And there's lots of different personality assessments out there. There's the Myers-Briggs, there's the Enneagram, there's the DISC inventory. Lots of these assessments are used in business and some are more for personal growth. But basically what they're describing is how you prefer to show up in the world. So I'm going to have everybody do this quick exercise, and I want you to cross your arms. Just cozy, comfy, cross your arms. And then I want you to go ahead and cross your arms the other way. So everyone can do this. We can cross our arms in the non-preferred way, but it feels kind of weird. It feels so much better to cross them in the regular, comfy way. So we do this all day long. We go from what we prefer to our non-preferred side. And what happens to us is if we get stuck in a career or a role that's in our non-preferred side for most of the time, our energy eventually is going to go down. It's draining us to have to think about how to cross our arms. And it's draining us to be in a place where our preferred side isn't really rewarded and more common and useful. So that's why it's important to think about your personality, and any assessment that you've done or personal growth that you've done is going to be helpful in this space. The second piece I like to talk about is strengths. Strengths really come to us from positive psychology. Positive psychology really talks about using what we're naturally born with, how we're naturally strong, and enhancing those strengths. Each of us has a different way that we show up that's our natural, flowy, easy way to do something. The things that come easy and naturally to you are your strengths. There's a couple different assessments that you can take if you're interested in strengths. One is called the Strengths Finder, and this was created by some Gallup pollsters looking at business strengths across all industries. That one really helps you to understand how you show up in the business world. And there's also another kind of character strengths called Values in Action, the VIA character strength inventory. And we can send you some of these notes, but basically that one is looking at your personal strengths. So either one of these assessments can show you strengths, or you can just look around and ask your friends, how do I show up for you? Just understanding, where are you strong? What are the things that you naturally do or people ask you to do all the time? So looking for a role where you can capitalize and use your strengths most of the time is going to be essential. The next piece is values. Values are really how we make our decisions, and they're something that typically stick with us throughout our entire lives. So values can come from our family of origin, or they can be something that we've really taken on for ourselves. They can be things like lifelong learning, kindness, understanding, education. You could value your close connections to friends, things like this. There's lots of different values out there and lots of ways to use them, but the most important thing for you to do is to note the ones that are really important for you and ensure that they're, at least most of them are representative in the role that you take. So when you're looking at an organization, let's say, or the next company that you want to work for, values is a big key piece. And values is a conversation that's been out there in the work world for a long time, long enough that they should be able to publish their values or let you know about them. You just need to see if they match up. The next two bubbles are skills. And these skills are things that you actually like to do. We all have so many skills. But what are the ones that you really like to use? So just think about that for yourself for a moment. You can list all the skills that you have, and believe me, every job application or, I lost the word there. Anyway, job application is going to ask you for many, many skills. But think about the skills that you actually like to use. And then the last piece being interests. What are you interested in? Are you interested in people? Are you interested in working with animals? Are you interested in the environment? Any kind of issue or theme that you can find from your life's thread, something you've been interested in maybe your whole life. Maybe you've been creative your whole life and you're interested in art. Or maybe you've been interested in film or interested in design or interested in people. So there's something that you hold that must show up in your next role. So when you look at all of those things together, and in this diagram, it's kind of hard to see, but in a Venn diagram setting, there's going to be a place there in the middle where they all overlap. And we call that the sweet spot. That is the place where when your strengths, values, personality, skills, and interests kind of all come together, that's where you want to start looking out there in the world for a role that fits who you are and what makes you tick. So when we go from that process, we are much more successful and you're much more focused and kind of defined on what you're looking for. So the next piece is to define your terms. Now, this work comes out of me working with many women who, again, back to the fact that women tend to put others' needs before their own. They will say, okay, well, here's a role that really works for how I'm strong and who I am, but it doesn't really work for my family in that it's a long commute or it's longer hours than I really want to work. But that's okay, I'm going to go for it anyway. I'll hear that a lot. People kind of going into something where their terms aren't really, well, first of all, their terms may not really be purposefully defined, but they're willing to give up things and without thinking through how that's going to affect their whole family life. And so it's very important to really be specific in defining these and try to get as many of these terms in the next role that you're taking or in the next iteration of your career, however that looks. So in this process, it's really important to be specific. And this specificity will give you a roadmap to the next piece where you're going to go out there and actually be looking and asking for help. People want to give you help out there in the world, and it's the better that you are at defining what you really want and asking for what specifically what you need, the better resources you're going to get from that conversation. So let's jump into this. And if you have a pen and a notepad, it'd be great. You can go ahead and start defining these for yourself right now.
And so Lauren, you'll tell us when you want people to share, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm going to have you share on a couple of these just to see kind of like what people out there look like, all of us together in this community. The first term I like to use is, what does your ideal day look like? And I have lots of clients who will say, what do you mean I can't have my ideal day? And I just throw that right back at them. Like, why not? Why can't we strive for having our ideal day be the baseline of what we're looking for out there in the world? So you're also looking for kind of, when are you most alert and alive throughout the day? And if you can just like scan a normal day for yourself, everybody has a time of day that they're more alert. Some people are very early morning people and their brains are totally on first thing in the morning. For most people, their most alive or alert time is from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is kind of like a magic window where everybody wants to schedule meetings. which is kind of the worst idea in the world, because unless your work revolves around meetings, we're bringing everyone together and using their best time to do a meeting instead of using their best time to do their best work. So that's just one kind of idea about why you really want to make sure that your ideal day is laid out there before you start looking. So I'll share with you my ideal day, but maybe some of you can kind of chime in and share some things that aspects of your ideal day that we can all take a look at. So for me, I'm an early morning riser, but I can't really talk to anybody in the morning. So I exercise first thing, and that gets my brain really charged up and ready to go. And then I love, if I had an ideal, when I have an ideal, I take some time to prepare myself. I do some meditation, just kind of a little self-care, preparing myself for the day. Then I see my clients. That's my time to really do my work. And then towards the end of the day, I also really like some sort of a buffer. For some people, a buffer can be even a commute. For me, it's usually walking outside. I like to walk my dog, and then coming together as a family for dinner. That's kind of my ideal day, my ideal work day. So if anyone wants to share kind of what does your ideal day look like, or where have you had challenges perhaps creating your ideal day in a workplace? Does anyone want to share?
Well, I can tell you that mine starts with coffee.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jason put this slide in, so there's the coffee.
Yeah. Here, we've got Fran wants to share, and I think there's one other person who might share. Go for it, Fran. Unmute. Are you there?
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Hi.
Oh, great. So like Stacy, my ideal day starts with coffee before I say, see, or talk to anybody. So I'd love to get that first cup of coffee in, and I'm a morning person. So I really like to jump in first thing in the morning and sort of take care of all of that kind of paperwork, or whether it's emails or connecting, looking at my calendar, just try and bang out a bunch of that. And then I might actually exercise when I get to it after that. So a little bit sort of that mid-morning, this would be my ideal day. And then oddly enough, for me, just in my situation, the late in the day, circling back and also banging out some emails and communications and maybe proposals or something. It works for me because I don't happen to have any children at home. So it's a little bit of a downtime for me, waiting until sort of my husband comes home, and then we cook dinner and finish out our evening together. That's my day.
And Brianna says,
that's awesome.
Slower paced time to do tasks well. So kind of a similar thought there.
Pacing is a really good thing to think about when you're thinking about your day. Yeah, buffering and pacing, very important for you. Because the buffering allows you to kind of come back to yourself before then you have to integrate back into your family. And it also allows you to, when you're going into your role or your workplace, to, again, kind of come back to yourself. So mindfulness and coming back to yourself is going to be an important building block during your day. Okay, let's go to the next one. And this is really, what is your ideal work environment? This is really about kind of what's in your space when you're working. You can think about, like, is it a noisy, playful kind of environment? Or are there more like individual workspaces or cubicles? Is it outside or inside? Are you collaborating with others? You know, kind of, is it a light-filled window, lots of windows, lots of light kind of space? Or is it more kind of like, not dark, but like cozy? Some people like a real cozy environment that's almost like kind of cave-like. And then just consider, do you want to work from home? Stacy put a slide in here from working from your bed. I thought that was awesome. Like, do you want to be able to work from your bed at times? At times with your coffee, right?
Exactly.
So just kind of make some notes, like what ideally, and we're going from ideal here, because why not? Let's go for the place where you feel most comfortable, the place where you're really going to do your best work. The next one is, who do you want to work with or in service of? I ask this question, or I have this term, because it's really important to understand who we want to impact out there in the world. This has us moving towards that meaningful work, the top of the pyramid. And this is when we really get to say, okay, I'd really like to serve, children or women or animals or veterans or whatever it is that the people that you really, really have a heart-based connection that you want to work in, where your work has impact. So you can think about, what are the benefits that my work has on someone? How do you like to serve people? And maybe where do you feel successful out there when you're serving someone? This is a very important term to think about, to make sure that you're having that values connect with your work. Okay. The next question is, are you more inspired working in a group or by yourself? So this kind of is similar to the first term of what does your environment look like, but it's a little bit looking more towards personality. So on the Myers-Briggs type indicator, there's the introverts and the extroverts. We know a lot about this now. If you find yourself more in the introverted part, you may do better working by yourself, or not necessarily by yourself, but at least having time to pull away and think. You might be what's called an introverted thinker, where you need that time and space alone to really get your thoughts together, and then you come back to the group. Or if you're an extroverted feeler, you need the group actually. Extroverts think outside of themselves, and they need a group collaborative experience for their ideas to move forward. It's almost like they are thinking outside, and their ideas are getting generated out there, outside of themselves. So maybe we can chime in here too, if anybody kind of wants to say something about being inspired by their environment, kind of internally or externally in this way. If you could just maybe even do the show of hands, how many of you like to work by yourself, let's say? Did we get a response?
Got a couple. I'm going to allow Henriette. I'm coming to you here, okay? There we go. Oh.
Yes.
Hi there. Are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi. Yes. Actually, I did the Myers-Briggs many years ago when I was working, and it was extremely helpful because I was working with two doing the same job and, sharing. And she was extrovert and I'm introvert. Mm-hmm. And it was very choppy to work together until we did this Myers-Briggs, and finally we understood, because she was annoyed because I wouldn't immediately answer to her questions, and I was annoyed because she would just say something. I found that very rude, and then when we understood how we were working, it was wonderful. She understood I need sometimes a little time, and then my answer would be probably efficient. And I understood that sometimes she would say something without really thinking it through, and I wouldn't take it in a bad way. So yes, I discovered I like to work with others, but I need some time alone to regroup myself and come back. So I really liked what you say, because I just saw myself in that.
Awesome. Thank you, Henriette. Yes, absolutely. That is very classic case of an introvert and an extrovert working together, and that understanding just makes all the difference. The Myers-Briggs test was actually created to create harmony out there in the world. It was created after the Second World War in order to help people heal from all of the discord that was happening out there. And just the premise is, if you understand another's personality and preferences, that then they're not doing those actions to you, they're simply doing what they prefer. And so once you understand it's their style, that you can have more harmony and relationships built that way. So thank you for sharing. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never knew that about the Myers-Briggs test. I've got one more. Is it okay if I take one more?
Yeah.
Here? Okay, Trish, coming to you. You may have to click unmute on your end. There you go.
Yeah. I am also introverted, and I know this about myself. So I definitely try and schedule time within my day to make sure that I have just some heavy heads down time where I can sort of sort out all the information that's come at me during the day, and that I can put together a plan in order to be able to make progress on whatever it is I'm doing.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Right. So that's something to really note about yourself. If you do need that time to integrate, to come back to yourself, to think through something on your own, a lot of workspaces these days are set up to be very communal, and it can be challenging for introverts to work in that environment that's always kind of energetic and people, collaborating and working together at big tables. So if you know this about yourself and you want to take a role in an organization like that, you can advocate and simply state that, in order for me to do my best work, I need some downtime, some place where I can go and think by myself, do my own work, kind of close the door if that's important. So that's really something to note and understand.
Can I make one point here too? I mean, I think one thing that in this phase, a lot of women go toward is that they want to start their own business. Yeah. And one of the things I've learned from doing that is that, and we're a distributed team, is that if you are an extrovert, it's really important to have a social outlet from, a professional social outlet, essentially, because I find it very difficult to just spend the whole day by myself. I agree that I like the downtime too, but it's just something to kind of think through, because I think there's a lot of freedom that comes from saying, oh, I'm going to work from home and I'm going to be my own boss. But just the reality then of not having interaction, that's where like a co-work space and that kind of thing can be really valuable. So just my 2 cents there on this slide in particular.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Thank you for saying that. I know many, I'm an introverted person, and I'm kind of an introverted extrovert. So I also really enjoy working collaboratively with people. So my co-working space is amazing for that, for connecting, seeing other professionals. And yeah, particularly if you're working in an isolated environment, it's really great to have some sort of collegial network of people that you can gather together. So thank you. Yeah. Okay, we're going to move to the next term. And this one's really about the aesthetic of your work environment. So do you prefer a posh office or a cozy workspace? It's kind of like you're choosing between, do you want a place that's more cash and people can kind of come and go as they please, wear whatever they want, or a place that's a little bit more conventional where people are kind of coming and going at the same time and dressing similarly? This is just a preference, but it's something that's good to note. I remember an example of this. My husband was working he's in the game industry, the mobile game industry. And one of his office spaces was within a Schwab kind of office. And I would go to pick him up and you could totally tell all the Schwab employees and all the, he was working for Electric Arts then. And so it was like the artists or the gaming community versus the Schwab employees. And it was really diverse and interesting to see that. So just kind of know what's your preference there. Okay, the next piece is about time. We all feel like we don't have enough of it, and we're looking also to do something with our time. So what kind of time commitment are you really looking for? This kind of goes into like, how much flexibility do you want? Do you want to work on project-based work? This is kind of important. Are you the kind of person that likes to go at it for a period of time and then take some time off? Or do you really like kind of a more consistent workflow? And do you want to do flex time, part-time? This is Après is so geared towards women really wanting to look into these different kind of time management roles in terms of working on the schedule that really works for you and your family. Okay, was there a question there? I didn't see that.
It says, what are your suggestions for figuring out best way to distribute the day-to-day tasks at home?
Yeah. So there I would say, as much as you can, to bulk things together. And then if you see something that you're consistently doing that you really don't like to do and you're not strong at doing, that's a place where you can look to outsource, either within your own family system, or Amazon Prime is a great outsourcing tool. But you have to just look at what you're doing every day and try to batch and bulk those things, like in the cooking world, where if you can, cook a bigger meal and then using the leftovers, shopping the same way, try to shop once or twice a week, laundry, all of these tasks that you're doing. I'm not sure if you're talking about household tasks or work tasks, but the same in your work task. If you can look at throughout your week on a flow and try to bulk and batch activities. Is that answering your question? I'm not sure.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll go to the next one. And this is along the lines of the time management piece. How far are you willing to commute? And be really honest here. Because we can, from the beginning think, oh, it's a great role and I really want to be downtown and I want to be in the whole mix of it. But then when you're thinking about it, I have a lot of women who say, okay, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area and kind of in Marin, which is a little bit of a suburb, who say, gosh, I don't, and you actually have to cross the Golden Gate Bridge to go into San Francisco, and their husband may be working there, and then they're thinking of their kids if both parents would be in San Francisco, kind of that far away from their kids. So that's a concern for some parents here in where I am, but it could just be like the ability to get back to home quickly. It could be that, you actually don't want to do that long commute every day. So really be honest about this piece, I find, is important. And then this one's also really good to note. Do you need or want to leave your work behind when you get home? So for a lot of entrepreneurs, this is absolutely not the case, that you're kind of always on and you're always thinking about your work. And I really enjoy that as an entrepreneur, but some women really want to leave their work behind. I had one client who came to me and really identified with this piece. She said, I kind of want to put a lab coat on when I get to work, and then I want to take it off when I get home. And she ended up being a school counselor, coming from marketing and media, where she was just frenetic, always on all the time. And she really loves that. She can literally leave her work behind when she gets home because she's not with the kids when she's out of the work environment. So if that's important to you, it's really something to consider. And then finally, I added this piece about, do you need to update your skills? Very, very important in our workplace that's changing all the time. What is it that you might need in your industry, or if you're moving into a new industry or changing roles? What are the tools that you really need to update? What are the skills? Take a course, do a re-entry internship or re-internship. Talk to people about what you may be missing, and that, finding ways to update this for yourself. It's very, very important before you go out and present yourself to the world. So I'm almost ready for the question part. I'm wondering if I want to pause here on any of those terms, if someone wants me to be more specific or has something to share.
It looks like we're good for right now, Laura.
Good? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I'll keep moving. So the next steps, once you have those terms defined and you've got your inside kind of understanding a little bit more about who you are and what makes you tick, what do we do now? Well, now you're really ready to start activating your network. This is your biggest tool. This is really the best resources that you have to get out there into the world. So how do we do that? Well, you really want to spread the word about your intentions to go back to work. And you want to emphasize your terms. So it doesn't do anybody any good when you say, you know, I really want to go back to work. I'm willing to commute anywhere. I want this role where I'm willing to do full time. You know, I'm willing to make all these sacrifices when you're really not. It's far better for everyone to be very specific with what you really want, even if you think it's going to be so narrow. Because people very much want to help you, but they need specific actions. They need to know, okay, I specifically need a connection to this person in this organization. Can you set that up? Or I really need help on building this part of my resume. Or I really need to understand what are the tools, what is the software that I need to learn, or is there a course that I need to take in order to get to this role? And if it's that you're going to start your own business, then it's important to get those connections made as quickly as possible. There's lots of mentors out there that really want to help you. You need to know exactly what you want help with. So that's the first place, is to spread the message loud and proud. There's lots of different social networks that we have, obviously. LinkedIn's great for professional development, and there's so many others, but really make sure that every time you're communicating it in every setting, that you're really sharing what you need and want. The next piece is to identify a few role models that are out there. Who has like the job that you totally want? And what does that look like? And how can maybe I get an interview with someone who's doing a lot of what I want to do? Particularly for entrepreneurs. If there's somebody out there just totally rocking it, you can reach out to them, find a way to get to them. Mentors absolutely love to teach, and they do have a lot of heart and time for those that are just getting started. So find your role models, reach out, ask them for help. People love to talk about themselves. Ask them, you know, their path to getting to where they are. What were the challenges along the way? All those kinds of questions. And finally, again, really, really ask specifically for what you need. If you're having trouble with any of this, there are resources right here at Après that help. I've read a lot of those articles. They help a lot for asking and kind of getting your self-esteem to the place where you can ask for what you need. And I'm available too. I want to go through the last slide, and then we'll take some questions. This is just how to stay connected with all this information. So there's my website. My email address is also there. I do work with individuals one-on-one, absolutely. And I'll be doing another webinar here. That's in February. It'll come up quickly. And then there's other awesome coaches and material webinars coming up, so sign up for those. And I think it's great that you're all here in this community together. And I want to acknowledge all of you for being brave enough to show up here and get help from the community that really is here to support you. So I'd love to go ahead and take any questions that anyone has. I was telling Stacy that I can't fix your partners and husbands, but I can definitely be here to help all of you with whatever you may be thinking about.
Yeah, one thing that Laura spends a lot of time with people on is that Venn diagram slide that she went through on your personality, your values, your strength, and kind of putting all of those together. So that's one thing to think through if that slide kind of generated some questions for you. A couple things I wanted to follow up on. one, on the updating your skills, we have a whole bevy of courses that you can sign up for, but we do have a LinkedIn webinar in particular coming up. So if that's something you want to update, that's on November 14th. But I also wanted to mention that LinkedIn bought lynda.com, and that has just every kind of online course that you could think about, you know, from how to learn how to sew to how to speak up better in a presentation. So I would really encourage you to look at that. I think you have to have a premium membership, and then all of those courses are unlimited and they're taught by a lot of experts. So it's really an incredible resource. And then just on the networking side, I think Laura's point about waiting to activate your network is really crucial. And before you get to that point of activating your network, I think the other crucial part is keeping your network connected to you. I've talked a lot about this in previous webinars too, but I think the authentic and, you know, the authentic aspect and intentionality of knowing, you know, who your network is and then staying in touch with them makes then that time when you're ready to turn the lights on and go back to work all the more better. And if it's something that you feel like you haven't done a good job of, now is the time to start. And it can be done in really simple ways. It doesn't have to be something where, you know, you're sending an email and saying, you know, in a couple of years, I'm gonna reach out to you. It can be much more like meeting for coffee once a year, or staying in touch with them on social media, something light in that respect. Or maybe it's sending holiday cards. You know, it's things that just keep people feeling connected to you, so that when you're ready to push that button, they feel like you're not just coming out of the woodwork and asking for something. And also be a little intentional about the things that you could be doing for somebody else during this time. So kind of that quid pro quo. Okay, so we have a question here from Fran. Can you tell us more about how to reach out to role models? Do you send invites on LinkedIn? Do you personalize the invites? That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that about the staying current, staying present with your network is very, very important. I learned a new definition of networking that I just love. It's just strictly a sharing of information. So it can't be a one-way, like it's much more challenging when it's a one-way ask. Right. So if you have something to share, that's also a way to kind of come at this connection for a mentor. But mostly mentors are in that position where they're able to help and they really want to help. So LinkedIn is awesome. It's a great tool for connecting with people. If you obviously see someone that can make that introduction, that's the best way, and can kind of speak on your behalf a little bit about what you're doing and what you're looking for and what you might have to have a conversation around. So that's the best way, I think, is really to work within your network. And yes, be really human as possible. Be very friendly,
I don't know if you're asking, Fran, that is it something where if it's somebody you don't know, how you reach out to them. And I think in those cases, LinkedIn can work. It's obviously a very, it's easy generally to get access to people there. But I also think a lot of times you can find somebody's email if it's somebody, if it's an executive at a company or whatnot, you can generally find their emails and send a note if it's that important to you. But otherwise, I would work your network to ask for introductions to the people that you're interested in talking to, because that will always work better.
Absolutely, but direct messaging, direct emailing is also a great resource, a great way to move forward.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got a couple other questions here. I'm gonna first of all note that Trish says that some public libraries include lynda.com for free, so I didn't know that, and that's fantastic. Love the library, free access to things. And then So Brianna says, how can she explain what she wants professionally to leave as many doors open as possible? And then she says, example, saying I want to be a teacher versus I want to be a catalyst for growth.
Yeah, I think the leaving doors open is a bit of an old idea. I think that actually being specific, it works much better. I think that you're going to find the resources that you really need that are aligned with you and who you are and what makes you tick. If you're specific, I think, the idea to leave a lot of doors open, yes, it might come through a door that you didn't think, that the resource may come through a door that you didn't think of, but you're going to be much more successful. And what we really want is for you to get some momentum going, because especially at the beginning, it can feel like you're knocking down a lot of doors and you're not getting a lot of answers. And so we want you to get some momentum going and to feel like you're progressing and getting somewhere and your steam's coming up. And so in this regard, being specific is much more effective.
Yeah, I agree. And also because of the respect for people's time, you'll get much better connections to the right people as a result of being specific. If you are having questions around what you're, maybe as a teacher, you're thinking, do I want to actually teach kids, or do I want to go do, training as part of a learning and development team at a company? I would reach out to people who you could just have conversations with over lunch or coffee to learn more about what they do, and sort of dig deep on what those things are that feel right to you as a result of those conversations, and then, activate the network on what your specific ask is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And then you can also look at impact there, on that example, like who is it that your work's going to benefit most?
Okay, so a couple more questions. Perrine here says, do you have advice on how to test a new purpose? I'm interested in a new direction for my career after a break, but feel very unsure if it will be a fit. What can I do to feel more secure in that choice before committing to that course?
Awesome question. So I like to do prototyping for this purpose. So try to, like, the kind of least viable product solution here. Just find a way to do the next iteration of what you want to do in the least costly, least time committed way you possibly can. So here's an example. There was a woman this comes from a book called Designing Your Life, which is an awesome, awesome book. I took a mini course from the professors that give this, that have written this book, but in their book, and is an example of a woman who really went for her new passion purpose project without prototyping. She was a professor at Stanford. She decided that she had taken a trip to Italy and fell in love with Tuscan cuisine, and decided that she wanted to open up a restaurant with an emphasis on Tuscan cuisine in her hometown. So she quit her job. She used her resources to open the restaurant. She was wildly successful, actually, which is kind of crazy. But after 3 years, she just realized she hated running a restaurant. So she could have just worked in a restaurant in any role, hostess, and understood that she hated running a restaurant before quitting her job, investing all this time and energy and money. She ended up selling the restaurant and was successful afterwards. But that's a way to think about, don't go full into your passion, dream, next role. Try it on first. Find some really small way that you can try it on. Volunteering, big way to be able to try something on.
Right.
Yeah.
Shadowing. I mean, one of the things we talk about is, if you have someone that you could just go to work with for a couple hours or something. I mean, I know that's easier said than done, but it is, or if you meet someone for lunch, can I come in and you can show me around the office first? Those are just good ways to sort of step your toe back in.
Totally. Or to even, if you're thinking about doing something entrepreneurial, to do it in a very small way. If you can host a book club on a topic and present, that kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. There was another question. Okay. This is a good one for this group. What advice do you have on how to handle what have you been doing the last few years when you're interviewing?
Love that. Do not be shy. I mean, you've been doing stuff. I know every woman's been doing a bunch of stuff. Try to quantify, if you can, anything that you've done. If you've done any fundraising, volunteering, particularly work with schools, whatever it is that you've been learning, try to quantify it. If you can't quantify it, then really qualify it, but don't just skip over it and not acknowledge it. Just own it. You know, this is what you've been doing. It's a values connect for you to have been doing whatever that you've been doing, and now you're interested in working for them. Simple, straightforward.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also just and really own the time. You know, this was something that was good for you and your family, or whatever the circumstances are, and really deeply feel that, and that will project when you are talking with other people, and you can be then specific about, you know, how you approach the time. I mean, you can use the Brenda Barnes example that you were getting a graduate degree, but that you know, you approach the time, and even if at the beginning you didn't approach it very intentionally, and it was more just, this is a change that we need right now, but then you kind of started to put the building blocks back together, sort of spend some time reflecting on what that time looked like, and again, you know, focus more on the future in the conversation about why you're a great person for that job.
Yeah, and another specific tool to use here are what I call PAR statements, where, and every resume should be really full of these, where there was a problem, you took a specific action to create a result. And this could be any place in your life. You could have a problem that you saw, you took an action, and you got a good result. So just kind of explaining your time in PAR statements is a great way to kind of work with that as well. So values, and then what are the results that you achieved with the time that you've had?
It's a great question. Okay, we've got a few more minutes here. So one more question: how do you ensure people do not question your commitment to work because you stopped to be with your kids?
Well, that would be I think that's actually kind of a gut question for you. You know, what you're asking for is about trust. So if you're a trustworthy person, I think that's going to come across to whoever you're interviewing with. And if they're questioning you, are you really wanting to be working with them? That's where I would go with that.
Yeah, totally. I have a lot to say about that. But you want to make sure that the people that you're talking to don't have that kind of thought in their mind. A
bias, really.
It's a bias. It's totally a bias. Thank you for calling that out. And, you know, obviously there's a lot of work that society needs to do on that front. But that is a judgment, and it doesn't have any place in your next steps, and it's not a place where you want to work if that's the feeling that you get.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah.
Okay, I feel like, anyone else want to chime in? I think we've answered all the questions here. Yay, these were great questions.
Thank you so much for participating.
Yes, thank you for coming to this, and you know, feel free to email Laura with any additional questions, and obviously you can email me at any time. Do contact at Après Group, or I'm sdilo at Après Group. You know, we're here specifically to help you through these transitions, so be in touch and ask us for help, because that's what we'd like to be able to do for you. So thanks again, Laura, and thanks again to everyone. This will actually be available as a link online soon, so you'll know when it's up. But thanks again, everyone. Have a great day. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.